Hey everyone, I'm Paul, and this is a 1970 Honda Trail 70. Guy that owns it says it just needs the carburetor cleaned. We'll see about that. In this video, I'll do all the repairs this Trail 70 needs to get back on the trail. The Trail 70 was meant to be a little dirt bike you can take camping with you on the back of an RV, inside a van, or in a truck bed with a camper. The handlebars fold down to make it smaller. Just turn these knobs here, and it only takes a few seconds to put them back up. Let's start with the front tire and check everything. This tire is flat. There should be 18 psi in the front tire. The back tire also doesn't have air. I'm inflating it to 21 psi. Next, I'm checking the oil. The oil type is written on the side of the engine. How convenient! It says above 60 degrees Fahrenheit to use 30 weight oil, and in cold weather, use 20 weight. Remove the dipstick and hold the motorcycle straight up and down to check the level. Insert the dipstick, but don't thread it in. It looks like it has oil. That's good. The oil smells like gasoline, and the color is a bit dark. Let's change that oil. The drain plug is on the right side of the bike and takes a 17mm socket. Make sure you have the drain plug washer. This oil is black. It looks a little thick, but I don't see any sparkly metal shavings, so everything seems normal so far. Reinstall the drain plug and get it nice and tight. I'm filling it with 0.7 liters of Honda 10W30 synthetic oil. This oil is a lot better than what they had back in the 70s. It will work great. The oil change is done. Let's take a look under the seat. Under the rubber cover, you'll find the battery and some wiring. This battery has 3 cells. It's a 6-volt battery. The positive and negative wires are permanently attached to the battery. There's a fuse and connectors. With the meter set to volts DC, I'm measuring 0 volts. This battery is completely dead. This is a Yuasa 6N2A battery. It looks really clean, like it might be new. I'm shining a light through the battery, and there's no liquid inside. Where did the battery acid go? I see a couple droplets inside, so maybe it had acid once, but there is no damage to the outside. I don't see leaks, and I don't see corrosion under the battery. It's a mystery. This is the battery from the Trail 70. A new one is $46, and I have to buy the acid separately, which is another $20 at least. I can try filling the old battery with acid to see if it wants to work, or I can buy a new one and fill it with acid. Both options are kinda dumb. I've had very good luck with cheap, sealed motorcycle batteries on Amazon. This one is a gel battery for $35. It's the same as a regular lead acid battery, except the acid is a gel instead of liquid form. It's already filled, ready to go. I don't have to go find acid somewhere, and I don't have to go through the filling and initial charge procedure, which can take 10 hours. Also, this is a 4 amp hour battery, and the old one was 2 amp hours. Moving on, let's take a look at the gas tank. Looking inside, it's very clean. There's no gas and no rust. The tank is plastic, so it can't rust, but that won't stop it from getting gross. Someone drained all the gas before storing it. 2 bolts hold the gas tank cover. 2 more bolts hold the seat. The battery bracket has this orange resistor attached to it. The air filter box has a long bolt going through it. Hold the nut on one side and remove the bolt. You'll find a foam filter inside with some metal hardware. This filter is perfectly clean. The fuel valve is on the side of the carburetor. The S position turns the fuel off. Reserve takes fuel from the bottom of the tank. The normal on position takes fuel a little higher up. There are 2 fuel inlet hoses right here. These look like original hose clamps. I sort of destroyed them. Whoops. Fuel hoses are a lot like a Chinese finger trap. If you pull on them, they get tighter. Push the hose off with a screwdriver instead. I'm replacing these old hoses, so I'm doing it the easy way and cutting the hose with a razor blade to get it off easily. Loosen the big hose clamp to the air cleaner and loosen up the throttle slide nut. 2 bolts attach the intake manifold to the cylinder head. The carburetor drain hose attaches down here. The clutch cable is held onto the carburetor with a little bracket. Bend it to release the cable. Now the carburetor is ready to come out. Unscrew the nut at the top and pull the throttle slide and cable out. The needle adjusts fuel flow through the main jet. It's pretty hard to remove this part from the cable, so I'm just going to leave it. I'm taking a look inside the carburetor. Pull the float bowl off. The gasket still looks good. Lucky. There's a bit of corrosion in the bottom of the float bowl, but it doesn't look too bad. These are brass floats. How cool is that? The air filter side has a metal screen. That's a spark arrestor. It prevents the air filter from catching on fire if it backfires through the intake. Pull this pin out and the floats come out. The float pushes on this small fuel inlet valve. Use a small flathead screwdriver to remove the main jet. It looks like it came out with the holder. I put it back in and tightened the holder with a 7mm wrench. This is the main jet. It's a size 60, probably stock size. It's very clean, and I can see light through the hole in the middle. The other jet is called the pilot jet or slow jet. It takes care of the fuel just above idle to half throttle, then the main jet takes over from half to full throttle. This jet is also very clean. It has a K for Keyhind stamped into it, but no size. Sometimes they skip the markings on stock jets. The float bowl also has the fuel valve built in. There are 2 inlets from the tank. I wonder what's behind this cover. It's a metal screen. The fuel comes in through here, goes across, then through this screen right here. That's the fuel filter. Then the gas goes through this passage to the upper part of the carburetor, and it goes through the fuel inlet valve. The floats push this valve up and close it when the float bowl is full of gas. I didn't have any carb cleaner in my garage, but I found this GDI cleaner is a more potent cleaner. It does a really good job dissolving old built-up deposits. A toothbrush works great for scrubbing out the dirt. I'll use the drain valve to get the liquid back out. I'm spraying the cleaner through all the passages. Switch to reserve and spray through the other fuel inlet. This lever is the choke. It closes off airflow to give you a rich mixture for starting the engine in cold weather. I'm doing a bit more scrubbing, then I'll make sure to wipe off my roommate's toothbrush before I put it back in the bathroom. He doesn't brush his teeth anyway, so it will be a while before he figures it out. Finally, use compressed air to spray out all the passages in the carburetor. The high pressure should break any remaining dirt loose. I want to have a nice collection of clean and organized parts before I put everything back together. A carburetor rebuild kit would be nice, but all this stuff is in excellent condition, so I think I can actually skip the kit. Let's put the carburetor back together. The main jet is the small one in the middle, and the long jet with the holes is the pilot jet. Here I have a piece of hose. The other end is in my mouth and I'm blowing on it. I'm reinstalling the fuel inlet valve and the floats. As the fuel level goes up, the floats rise and close the inlet valve. The valve should close exactly when the floats are level with the base of the carburetor. This can be adjusted by bending the tab that touches the fuel inlet valve. The valve is adjusted correctly. Next, I'm installing the float bowl drain valve, followed by the fuel filter cover. This gasket is still good. This is where the fuel passes to the upper part of the carburetor, and this long tube is the overflow. If the fuel valve doesn't work properly and the float bowl is too full, extra gas will go out the float bowl drain. Now the float bowl can go back on. And this is the old drain hose. The carburetor is ready to go back in. I'm taking off the air cleaner, but I won't tell you why. I'm building suspense, like a movie. With the air box out of the way, I can pull out the gas tank. Under the gas tank, you'll find the ignition coil. The spark plug wire is permanently attached to it. And this is the wiring coming from the stator for the charging system. And the rest of the wiring is up here. The gas tank has two hoses attached to it. When you switch the carburetor to the on position, you take fuel from the middle of the tank. When your Trail 70 stops running, you can switch to reserve and you still have about a quart of gas left to get you home. I think these fuel hoses are original. They're hard and split when I apply pressure with the diagonal cutters. Spray a little alcohol to make it easier to install the hose. I bought 3 feet of 1/4-inch fuel hose from the local auto parts store. It fits tightly and should last as long as the old ones did. O means on and R means reserve. I'm labeling the hoses with a piece of tape so I don't get them mixed up. Now I just need to work the gas tank back into the frame. Pull on the fuel hoses so they don't get stuck. I guess I'll install a new hose here too. It's 1/8 inch inside diameter. I'm reinstalling the air box. The air comes in here, so keep in mind if you're crossing water, you can't go deeper than this line. The air cleaner is held onto the frame with a small bolt and a big nut. You can use an electric impact to save time, but the final tightening should be done by hand. The throttle sticks and doesn't snap back on its own. I can't figure out how to take it apart without damaging it, so I'm just going to spray some Tri-Flow in it. Lubing the cable is a good idea too. Reinstall the rubber piece that goes to the carburetor. Secure the fuel drain hose and clutch cable into their clips. Insert the carburetor into the air cleaner, then install the 2 bolts that attach the intake manifold to the engine. Finally, tighten the hose clamp. Squeeze the clutch cable holder closed. Now I can cut the fuel hoses to the proper length. They're a really tight fit, so I sprayed a little alcohol to help install them. I skipped the hose clamps because they're not needed. Also, I used my last 2 hose clamps on the gas tank. And that's how the hoses look from here. I have a nice curve going to the gas tank, and the hoses are not kinked. The throttle slide has slots on both sides and an angled cutout for the idle speed adjustment screw. The screw touches the angled part of the slide and moves it up, giving the engine more air. The needle must go straight in and line up with the main jet. Don't force it in there. If it doesn't drop, pull it up and try again. Tighten the throttle nut. Now the air filter can go back in. Install the foam on the metal thing and slide it in with the metal facing away from the carburetor. It won't fit the other way. Install the cover and hold the nut on the right side of the bike while you tighten the bolt. The gas tank cover holds the tank and is attached with 2 bolts. I'll be working on the battery next. The original battery comes with a fuse and a connector that plugs into the Trail 70. The new battery I bought only has bullet connectors. I need to move the wiring over to the new battery. I also bought a battery charger. It comes with a trickle charge connector and a fuse. I'll start by pulling the negative wire off the old battery. The charging connector goes to both positive and negative wires, and I'm adding a bullet connector that will plug into the new battery. Crimp the connector, slide heat shrink over the wire, then solder it. The heat shrink does a great job insulating wiring connections and won't unravel like tape. I installed a second piece of heat shrink, but didn't shrink the end of it. This will slide over the other bullet connector. The old battery comes with a fuse. Let's check it out. This is a 7 amp glass fuse. The charger came with a plastic fuse holder, so I'll use that instead with a 10 amp fuse. I'm soldering the bullet terminal onto the fuse holder. This end will plug into the new battery. And of course, a bit of heat shrink makes things look really nice. I cut off the old glass fuse holder and added the trickle charger connector to the wiring harness from the old battery. The square white connector will plug into the motorcycle, and you can connect the charger to it here. I modified only the harness from the old battery, not the Trail 70 or the new battery. Basically, I made an adapter that allows you to use the sealed Amazon batteries and connect to a charger. The next challenge is the battery box. The new battery is too big and won't go in there. Only the width is wrong, so I can make it fit by trimming down these two rubber pieces. Now the new battery slides into the holder. I'm reattaching the resistor to the side of the battery box, then dropping it in. The wires under the box get in the way, so you might need to move them a little. The new battery is fully charged and measures 6.5 volts. I'm plugging in my battery wiring harness and tucking it into the space behind the battery. If I need to recharge the battery, I just open the seat and plug in the charger. Let's test the electrical system. Key on. The taillight comes on, but the headlight stays off. Nothing happens when I push the horn button. I'll come back to that later. Let's look at the spark plug. This skid plate is in the way, so I'm taking it off first. The spark plug takes a 16mm socket. This is the NGK C7HSA. A lot of small scooters and motorcycles use this spark plug. The spark plug is also useful for telling you how the engine is running. You'll get a light brown color if it's running lean or not enough fuel. The spark plug will be black if there's too much fuel, and it will be clean or slightly tan if the carburetor is tuned correctly. This spark plug looks good. The ceramic insulator in the middle is still white, and the electrode isn't rounded, so it's not worn out. You can get a spark plug gap tool at any auto parts store for cheap. The gap should be 24 thousandths of an inch, or 0.6 millimeters. There is nothing wrong with the spark plug, so I'll reinstall it. Get it nice and tight, and don't forget to install the guard on the outside. I think I'm ready to find out if this Trail 70 runs. I poured a gallon of fresh gas in the tank. The gas cap has this weird spinny thing. I don't think it does anything, but I'll turn it on. First, I'll turn the fuel on. It was 56 degrees in the garage when I filmed this, so the choke also needs to be on. The choke restricts air, giving the engine a rich mixture to help with cold starts. Finally, the key turns the ignition system on. It looks like the headlight works. The switch on the handlebar changes between high and low beam. Let's reinstall the battery strap, this rubber cover, and the seat. I noticed the chain is very loose. To adjust the chain, I have to loosen the rear axle. There's a 19mm nut on one side, and you can hold the other side by putting a screwdriver through this hole. Turn the chain tension adjusters clockwise to move the wheel back and tighten the chain. Turn the nuts the same amount on both sides. Use the reference marks on the swing arm to make sure the axle is in the same position on both sides. The chain should move 2 centimeters when you push it up. Now I can tighten the axle. I recommend using Honda chain lube. Lubing the chain is messy, so make sure to put cardboard on the ground. That's the safe way to do it. If you want to lose a finger, you can do this. Finally, wipe off the extra chain lube. Definitely don't do this with the engine running. Remember how the horn doesn't work? Let's do something about that. Removing the front brake lever gives you access to the small Phillips head screw that holds the horn button. This switch has one wire and is grounded to the handlebar. When you push the button, it connects the wire to ground. The wire goes through the handlebar, comes out of this hole, then goes into the headlight housing. Remove one Phillips head screw and pull the headlight out to get access to the wiring. The gray wire is for the horn. I'm testing for continuity. The button and wire are good. I found the wires going to the horn were bad, so I cut those off and soldered new wires to the horn. The horn gets a ground through the gray wire and the button on the handlebars. Power comes from this red wire. Now it works. The final test is the charging system. With the engine revved up, I'm getting 6.3 volts at the battery. That should be enough to keep it charged. Looks like everything works on this Trail 70. Now it's time to take it for a test ride. As soon as I got outside, the kickstart decided to stop working. I don't want to take the engine apart, so I hope it magically fixes itself after riding a bit. You can always just get moving and drop the clutch to start it instead.